G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of the Purple Coloured Glasses. I'll be going through my tips for round 6 and how Freo fared against Carlton on Saturday night. So first I'll start with the Dockers game. We were up against the Blues. It was billed as match of the round, Saturday night, prime time. And there was many a Dockers supporter quietly anxious. It's moments like these where we've faltered before. But no, instead we held our nerve. Bit of a tight first quarter. We know Carlton come out firing in first quarters or in first halves this year, and we held them at bay. And then the second quarter, we put a bit of a margin on them, which was good. That we held for the rest of the game. Extended a little bit in the third and fourth quarters. So it was just a great all-round team performance. You'd say Patrick Cripps was best on ground with 3 goals and 30-odd touches, and that was reflected in the coaches' votes. But then if you look at the disposals list, Carlton had the next sort of 5 ball getters, but they didn't really have much impact. Freo had a much more even distribution across the board in our midfield, and I think we were just more damaging with the ball. We were the more efficient team with ball in hand. I think we went at something like 80%, and Carlton went at 65%. So we just used the ball incredibly well. We punished Carlton when we did get it. They just couldn't really break through our defensive pressure that we were applying. Lots of rundown tackles, guys just coming in from the side, applying that perceived pressure, making it hard for Carlton. And then we just hit them on the rebound. They didn't seem to have a lot of outside spread and speed, and that's where our guys really went to work. Having a look at the player ratings for the game, so Sam Switkowski was a career best game according to the AFL player ratings. The same for Will Brodie. And Dave Mundy's also had his season best game according to this. So good even spread from the boys. I thought Michael Walters had finally got a bit of reward for effort that he'd been putting in the last couple of weeks. Lots of defensive acts and pressure acts, but wasn't getting the goals. He didn't have the strapping on his hand as much as last week. He didn't have that brace on. His set shot routine looked a lot cleaner, and then he kicked a great dribbler after he sort of fumbled it onto lob, and then he crumbed it up back off him and kicked it through. A few people being a bit critical of Michael Frederick. I thought he applied a lot of pressure. He's rated as second worst on ground behind Zach Fisher. It was just one of those nights where he was free and people weren't feeding Freddie, as I like to say. Great t-shirt from the Purple Rain. If you haven't checked that out, go check that out. They do some custom Freo shirts there, and there's one with Feed Freddy. But yeah, there was one where he's out the back and Lob just jumped in front, and that would have been an easy goal. A couple where he's loose and the ball just hasn't gone to him, has gone to other players, or it's been rebounded. But yeah, put his body on the line in sort of key moments and help win the ball. And we're sort of seeing that spread sort of week to week. So like last week, I think he got 2 goals and Tab's got 7. This week, Lob's got 3. Schultz has got 3. So we're just getting that nice even spread throughout our forward line. Switkowski popped up for a couple goals as well. He could have had 3 goals. So it's good to see in our forward line we've got this mix and we're dangerous. Even in that sort of good period we had in the sort of 13 to 15, we had Pavlich, Ballantyne and Chris Mayne. And there wasn't really a lot else other than that. You'd have the sort of floating ruckman forward, so Sandilands if he was resting there, or Jonathan Griffin, someone like that. So we do actually look a bit threatening at ground level, which is good. And I was really critical of the team last year in that the ball would just rebound out of our attacking 50 far too easily, and it's good to just see much more pressure being put on the defence, and it's reflecting in our defensive efforts as well. So we're able to keep teams to lower scores because the ball is being pressured coming forward, where last year it was just too easy for teams to put the ball into our defensive 50, which made it really hard for our back 6. I thought Cox and Pearce played well as Lowe came in and played on Curnow. Cox has probably been our best defender so far this year. Pearce kept Mackay quiet, kept into a goal, I think it was, maybe 2 goals. He did hurt his knee, and that hobbled him a bit, but Pearce is dominant on him. And you'd say only Max King's got a hold of Alex Pearce this year, and it's for a 5-minute burst. Unfortunately, that was probably enough to cost us the game, but it's great to have Alex Pearce back. He's that 200 centimetre style key position defender And it only gets tougher next week. Got to play on Hawkins and Cameron. Now, if we thought Mackay and Kerno were tough, that's going to be a big matchup next week at GMA HBA. I thought Akers again, playing solid games, kicked a goal of the year contender. It might be hard to beat that one, just sort of running away from goals, snap over his shoulder from the pocket. Great goal. Schultz was good to have him back. Some poor defensive efforts from Carlton. He's just finding pockets unmarked. The second smallest bloke in the field. Kicks 3 goals. Good effort from him. Brayshaw, solid again. Brody, great game. Darcy, unfortunately, got his head trodden on accidentally. So he's out with concussion. They've taken Lloyd Meek out of the Waffle game for Peel today or yesterday. So he won't. Yeah, it was on Sunday. So that was to protect him from COVID, I think. They could have given him the run. But they just want to make absolutely sure we've got a ruckman for next week. I don't think there'll be too many other changes. Erasmus had 34 touches, was probably best on ground in that game, but he unfortunately got concussed towards the end. And I don't think they're going to be changing the forward line structure, even though Amos kicked 5. I think they'll just give him a lot of time in the waffle to develop a bit, and Tracy kicked 4. And he played a lot of AFL last year when he probably wasn't ready to play. He's that sort of big body, but you got to remember he was a rookie pick last year. He hadn't really played much VFL at all in over East because of COVID. So it's good that just both are not injured and are playing and getting games under their belts. And you never know, Taberner or Lob might go down at some stage. They do have a bit of an injury history, and then they can come in with a bit of confidence under their belt, rather than just being put in the team. We'll probably lose some of our speed if we would, because they'd have to come in maybe for someone like Schultz or Switkowski or Frederick. So we then lose a lot of our ground speed. Or Collier, who's another fast forward player. And Sturt's probably still building. I think he can come in for one of those guys. He's deceptively quick and probably adds a bit more height to our team, so we've got more of a marking threat. Maybe for someone like Collier. Collier is playing quite well, though. I think he knows he's probably that fringe 22 type player, and it's Switkowski and Schultz seem to be just ahead of him, so whether it's Collier or Frederick, the one that would go out for someone like Sam Sturt when they want to get him into the team later this year. So yeah, all around pretty good game. Looking forward to us playing against Geelong. I think that'll be a tough game, but we've definitely got a chance. We've got our spine going quite well. I think Meek's a decent replacement for Darcy. I think Darcy's still better at going forward and being a goal threat. But I think Meek will compete well around the ground. Geelong don't really have a ruckman. Like, it's either Blitzharvest or Stanley, and they're not that intimidating. If there's a weakness in the Geelong team, it's their rucks, and it's been like that for a long time. So moving on to the games for the week, I got 6 out of 9. Maybe I should have followed my wife's tipping. She got a perfect round, 9 out of 9. Props to her. And so the first game was the Giants up against Saints, and I thought this would be an upset. And Giants were competing quite well with Saints, but just didn't stick at it for the entirety of the game, and the Saints ended up running over the top of them and winning by 17 points. I thought it would be a close game, and it was for a large portion of this, but unfortunately the Giants just fell away. The next game, very exciting game. Was surprised the Missile had tipped Adelaide in this one, and they got it done by 1 point. Doggies did kick a goal with about 8 seconds left, so it probably makes it look a little closer than what it actually was. I thought Adelaide dominated large portions of the game. Their defence were well on top. Bulldogs didn't really have anything in. Their only sort of plan was to just kick it forward down the line each time, and the Adelaide interceptors just went to work and destroyed them. They missed Tim English, the Doggies, and Norton didn't really have much of an impact, which is a bit rare for him. He's probably still battling a few injuries he had at the start of the year. The Bont was forward as well. It didn't have much of an impact. And you start to worry about the Bulldogs a bit now. They're 2-4. This is probably the second or third game where they're expected to win and they've lost. So they're probably not travelling, or they're not winning the games we would expect them to win. And that top 4 position for them is probably slipping away, which means a team like St Kilda or Freo or Sydney, they'd be looking and go, oh, yep, one of the teams that... I mean, Doggies did finish fifth last year. They didn't finish top four, but they played off in the grand final. A lot of people had them finishing that sort of top two position this year. So there'll be teams going, okay, now's our chance. Port Adelaide's also dropped off a lot, so they might come back, but they're giving up quite a bit of a lead to some of these other teams. Port against West Coast. So Port gave out the expected thumping to West Coast. I think West Coast is already a bit of a write-off. They had the waffle players come in. I think they made probably a mistake in bringing too many of their prime midfielders back at once. Lacked a bit of match conditioning and fitness. Should have kept some of the guys in like O'Neill. And just so they've got a bit more two-way running, I think some of those guys really only like it when it's on their terms. No Nick Nat, it's not going to be silver service. They've got to apply a lot of pressure, tackling, and that's never been this West Coast midfield's like one would. They've played more of the skillful intercept style game, and McGovern's out as well. He's probably had a career best year so far when he's been able to get on the park. He's played exceptionally well. He and Hearn down there. And I thought without someone like that to intercept, rebound, I didn't see there being much scoring opportunities for West Coast. Their defence weren't going to monster Port Adelaide's... Sorry, their midfield wasn't going to monster Port Adelaide's midfield, who were just desperate to get a win. They were lighting the pitchforks up at Port Adelaide there. So, Port got over in that one. The only thing you can say for West Coast is that maybe they're having a bit of pain now to get some of the conditioning in guys like Shuey and Yo and Kelly, who's come off a COVID break, because they see them as their best midfield group at the moment. But these guys are getting on a bit. Shuey's had a lot of soft tissue injuries. Maybe they need to start looking at their youth, who are the younger players coming through. Maybe they actually give them a bit more. You understand the coach being loyal, and West Coast supporters probably don't want to hear my opinion on it too much, but they may need to start going down that rebuild path. They don't have a lot in their midfield stocks, I think it's fair to say. Oscar Allen, I think, is a very good tool, whether he plays forward or back. But sort of after that, who are the top 5 youngsters at West Coast? Like, you can't really name any. It's not like North Melbourne and Adelaide and Freo and Carlton. Like, you've got a lot of these younger players. Freo and Carlton are a bit more advanced, but Adelaide and North are in that sort of earlier stages. And you're looking at even teams like Bulldogs, who've had a couple come through, like father-son, and their NGA, and Brisbane are getting some younger players through, like Zach Bailey. West Coast don't really have that coming through at the moment, outside of Allen, I reckon. So we talked on the Freo game. Then we look at the Cats against North Melbourne on Sunday. That was down in Tassie. And Geelong just monstered North. Wasn't really close at any stage. North, it's going to be a long year for them unless they start picking up in their overall performances. Like, they're not the most talented team going around. Lots of young guys. But you just don't want to see it being like the early days at Carlton. You can kind of see there's still that emotional damage there where they just lose too many games in this rebuilding phase where it becomes a bit of a psychological damage to the team. It was like that for the Demons as well. They just almost forgot how to win. And they need to put in more competitive performances. Otherwise, it's going to be a really long year for them and their supporters. Adelaide look a lot better than most people thought. You'd think the Eagles will pick up a bit this year, and Port aren't going to keep losing the way they have. So the wooden spoon is theirs unless they can find another gear. They played well towards the back end of last year. They didn't win that many games, but they were a lot more competitive. And at the moment, they just only play for a quarter here and there. And when they do, they can challenge teams. But at the moment, they look sort of rusted on for the wooden spoon. Though the Bombers may challenge them. Gold Coast against Brisbane, the Q Clash. I think Brisbane are just way too strong this year, and they showed that and absolutely touched up Gold Coast. Gold Coast's home derby for the year. Didn't actually get to watch this game, but it was pretty much one-way traffic as I thought it would be. The question for Gold Coast is this it for the year? Because normally after 6 or 7 rounds, they're done. They need to bounce back. They need to put a few games together. They are playing Freo in a couple of weeks, so hopefully they drop that one. But they need to start putting some games together. Otherwise, just another write-off year for Gold Coast. And it's a bit same old from them. Then we had Melbourne against Richmond, and I thought this could go a bit either way as well. I hadn't tipped Richmond correctly all year so far. I finally tipped a game they were involved in correctly, and I went with the D's. And they could have won this by 100 points if they'd kicked straight. They were absolutely dominant all around the ground. They just didn't kick very well in front of goal. 9 goals, 22 to 8 goals, 6. Makes this look a lot closer than what it actually was. Melbourne dominated them, looking very, very good this year. And then the 2 games today, the Anzac game. So we had Hawks up against Sydney, and I tipped Hawks in the upset here. I thought seeing the game against Geelong, they came out of the blocks, they'll back that up. And I was thinking, I'm a genius here. They're 30 points up before Sydney have even got on the scoreboard. But unfortunately, Sydney just slowly pulled them back in over the course of the game. And they kicked 9 goals to 1 in the last quarter. So I think Hawthorn led at every change, except that last quarter when Sydney just kicked it up a gear, kicked 9 goals to 1, and made it look like a much bigger margin than what it was for a majority of the game. So props to Sydney. I think they gave another very good year this year. And they proved me wrong for doubting them again. And then the final game was the Anzac Day Clash. Essendon against Collingwood. I went with the Pies. I don't really rate Essendon this year. They don't look like they've got much pace around the contest. They don't seem to apply a lot of defensive pressure. Not many tall forward targets outside Peter Wright. Their backline, I don't really rate them. And they made it a close game. Like, they definitely rose for the occasion. But Collingwood were just excellent in front of goal. They sort of balanced that performance against West Coast, where they had 22 more entries and just couldn't kick straight when they lost that game. With this result here, where they've just kicked very straight. And good kicking's good football. They've only had 18 scoring shots to 22. But that was the difference. So that was my 6 out of 9. As I said, the Misso got 9 out of 9. She's the perfect tipper in the house this week. She can shout me the free Whopper as it used to be. Let me know what you got for your tips this week. Drop it in the comments. Leave me a like and subscribe if you're enjoying the channel. Thanks, everyone. Catch you all later.